As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and we need to talk about what is going on in Israel and the United States response with the Biden administration looking at potentially having refugees from Gaza and Palestine coming into the United States. What does that mean for leftism? Well, there's a term that you really need to understand how the leftists understand it, and that is decolonization. My good friend Auron MacIntyre from BlazeTV is coming up next to talk about this more, and also how the U.S. House of Representatives speaker race is going to impact all of this. Coming up next. With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you. So joining me now is Auron MacIntyre, who is a Blaze TV host and has his show, The Auron MacIntyre Show, which you really need to watch if you have not been. I learned so much, and I was watching, Auron, your episode on decolonization, and I found it really fascinating, and I'm glad that you could join me on this show today to kind of go over some of those details again in this conversation, because what we're seeing from the war and the conflict between Israel and Hamas, and then the leftist response, particularly on university campuses and from some of these leftists, it just seems like they're escalating this whole narrative of decolonization. So let's start there and kind of define what I think they mean by that, but what we need to understand that they mean by that.
Absolutely. This is a concept that is not new. It's been sitting in the radical leftist movement since at least the 1960s. This is language that was very prevalent when those kind of militant movements were very popular. The Weather Underground, those kind of people constantly parroted this rhetoric. So it's not so much a new use of this, but a resurgence of it. We saw it really come to the forefront when we had the BLM movement and the critical race theory movement, especially when it comes through academia. They love this type of language. And when they're using this language, what they're talking about is the idea that there's this policy of colonization, usually committed by Western governments or white nations on other nations. And this is what has oppressed people around the world, minorities. This is what has brought them into a terrible state. And until these chains are broken, until this repression is broken, they can never be free. They will always be put down. And so this has always sat at the core of leftist ideology, especially in academia. But what we're seeing now is the very clear connection of this rhetoric with the violence that is now happening between Hamas and Israel. And it's making it very clear to a lot of people that this is not just academic language, but this is a very specific and violent movement that is aimed at the populations of countries like Israel, but also populations of countries like the US.
Yeah, and I think this is an important dialogue point, particularly when we see the Biden administration really saying that they're prepared to receive refugees from Gaza, and a lot of the leftists saying, this is a good thing because we need to have a more homogenous, diverse community. When people like Governor DeSantis are coming out and saying, absolutely no, we need to take zero of those refugees, particularly because they haven't been vetted. Certainly, our sympathy goes out to the innocent people in Palestine that are not part of Hamas, did not choose this, but there are other Arab countries that can take them that would be better suited in terms of culture and in terms of just geographic location than the United States. And so how dangerous is it really when leftists and particularly the Biden administration are pushing this whole narrative that we need to accept unvetted refugees?
It's incredibly dangerous. And of course, we see the impact of that when it comes to the migration crisis in Europe. Many countries in Europe have been completely transformed by the fact that they've allowed large amounts of migrants, those claiming refugee status, but who are honestly usually economic migrants, coming into the country, moving into ethnic ghettos, holding on to their religion, holding on to their language, holding on to their culture, not integrating into those societies, not becoming members of those societies. We've seen this pattern. We know how this works. And they understand that this is a danger because as soon as this conflict broke out, we saw many of these people who had transferred into these European nations taking to the streets, waving Palestinian flags, chanting all kinds of horrific things, spray painting Free Palestine onto priceless French landmarks. They are desecrating the very nations that they moved to, and they're taking those ethnic conflicts, ancient blood feuds with hundreds, thousands of years involved, and they are transferring them into Western nations. This is an incredibly dangerous situation, and having it pushed further into the United States obviously is to no one's benefit, unless, of course, you're the Democratic Party, who's hoping to gain a large amount of lifelong Democratic voters.
Yeah, and the fact that this is just all coming down to getting more Democrat voters is really disgusting and disturbing, quite frankly, rather than seeing the bigger picture here. But also, I think part of the Democrats' agenda is to tear down our constitutional republic. And what better way, honestly, than to bring terror cell groups that can rise up and that can actually perpetuate this kind of atrocity here in America? I mean, these are things that the leftists, even those that are in office right now, we have federal elected officials in Congress that are siding with not just Palestinians, but with Hamas and refusing to condemn the atrocities. And when you talk about assimilation, Auron, I mean, these are people, it doesn't matter what their heritage is. I mean, my family came from England, came from Germany. I have kind of a wide range of, my ancestry, but I'm an American. It doesn't matter the ancestry in terms of where my allegiance is as a citizen of the United States. That's what America first means. And so when we look at the Democrats and the elected officials that are refusing to condemn Hamas, what does this tell us about the overall overarching perspective of the Democrats and why they want to tear down America?
It shows us that they're really willing to win at any cost. They're, like you said, they're not worried about the long-term well-being of the United States. All kinds of people from Teddy Roosevelt to Pat Buchanan have echoed the same thing. Good people can come to the United States from almost anywhere and become good American citizens. But the key to that process is leaving all those other national bonds behind. You are becoming an American. There are no hyphenated Americans. There can be no transfer of just people coming in here, keeping all of those cultures, staying together in one large ethnic bloc, in one community, and then carrying those preferences to the ballot box, because that will ultimately impact the way that our democracy works. But that's exactly what the Democrats are hoping for. And really, they don't care about the long-term impact. They don't care about the fact that they are transforming the United States in a way that will destroy any of those cultural freedoms that are tied not just to what is written in the Constitution, but is written on the hearts of people in the United States. You cannot change the population of the United States and expect for the values of the United States to change. And so I think that what we really need to understand is, again, this has taken place in so many other countries. Many other Western nations are now dealing with the implications of this policy. And I think the Democrats are betting that at the end of the day, they can trans Muslim kids faster than Muslims can bring Sharia law into the United States. But that's a losing bet. It's not one you want to make.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating that when we make these kinds of comments and statements and make these kind of arguments, then the automatic default opposition rhetoric from the Democrats and the leftists is, well, you're just being racist. You're not allowing for diversity of culture. You're not respecting where people come from. And yet somehow they're completely denying the fact that they're not respecting American culture. They're not respecting our Western values. They're not respecting our Judeo-Christian heritage. And we're not allowed to openly advocate for that and to promote that and say, if you want to be a part of our society, this is who we are. This is what America means. And certainly, as you said, anyone can come from anywhere across the globe, and they can come to America and understand and embrace what the American experience is and the American dream. And we have immigrants from all over, legal immigrants, who have done exceptionally well. And it's because they understand what the American experience actually is. They're not bringing their culture and their values that are in conflict with what America means. And certainly no other Middle Eastern society would accept that from Americans. I mean, we're expected to assimilate even as tourists. I mean, I remember the last time I was in Europe and, being somewhat looked down upon because I didn't speak the native language. And they're like, how, the tenor was, well, how dare you expect that everyone just speaks English? And it's like, well, I mean, that's totally fair. It's their country. And I'm trying to speak as much as I can or get a translator. And most people are fluent in English anyways, but that was the expectation. And as even a tourist, I understood that. But how much more if I chose to go and live in a different country, would I start to need to assimilate, speak the native language, speak and embrace the values of what their society means? And certainly we can have different political opinions, but this really comes down to an outright rejection of the American dream, our Judeo-Christian heritage, and everything that America stands for as the most prosperous nation and the shining beacon on a hill. That's what the Democrats don't want to see. And so they want to bring in all of these refugees. They want to diversify America. Diversity is not our strength.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Obviously, you have a scenario where people cannot assimilate because there's just a vast number of people coming in. This is a Christian nation. This is a nation that is built on a very particular set of values. And over time, small amounts of people coming in, spending time, marinating in that culture, being inside of those communities for generations, they can eventually acquire their status as Americans, and their children can enjoy that status. But when you have millions of people pouring across borders, when you have no interest in thinking about whether or not a particular people are compatible with your current values, look, eventually this can always take place, but there is a proximity to your culture that matters, which is something that the United States has always taken into account up until basically 1965. And now that the borders are wide open, we don't take account of this at all. It's simply whoever comes in. And please remember, people, that those coming over the southern border are no longer just strictly Hispanic Americans coming close from Mexico or countries like Venezuela. It is now people from Africa, it's people from the Caribbean, it's people from the Middle East, and they're all coming in unvetted. And when they come in with, again, those cultural imperatives built in, when you bring a large amount of people, very possibly from Middle Eastern countries who already have these attitudes, and there's no way to check them at the border, you're just inviting disaster.
So what's the solution here then? I mean, obviously we're looking toward 2024 and know that Republicans and conservatives really need to win elections. We need to take back the White House and all of that. But in terms of really changing the mindset back to America first and our founding and understanding that, especially when you look at the universities and some of these students that are actually saying, we're pro-Palestine and, we hate America, all of these things. And you even have some foreign exchange students who are saying that, who are benefiting from our universities. What is the broader solution here?
There just needs to be a more aggressive stance, especially from the GOP on this issue. We need to be talking about an immigration moratorium. A lot of people might feel that's extreme, but I think it's absolutely necessary. We need to heal this nation. This nation needs to come together. We need national unity, and that can only happen if we stabilize the population and allow the people here to work out their differences and form one culture again. That cannot happen with a constant flow of people in the United States, especially people who are incentivized to hate the United States and move into our most elite universities, become parts of our go from the college to the boardroom to the government, and become critical parts of our infrastructure. It will destabilize any nation. It's simply impossible. The GOP, let's be honest, has been complicit in this action. They've made sounds about border security. They've always making promises about that, but all we've ever seen is amnesty. All we've ever seen is failed promises. One of the reason that Trump, accelerated into the limelight was because he started saying things about immigration that no GOP candidate had been saying for a very long time. That is what got him to the front of the line. That is what gave the energy to the MAGA movement. And if you want to see that again, you have to do that again. It's really simple. Open borders has always been very unpopular with the American people. If you go back just a few decades, even liberals, even very left-wing people did not like the idea of open borders. It was very unpopular. And yet that has been the standing policy of both of our major political parties for a very long time. And that tells us something about what our democracy is actually responding to. It doesn't look like it's the opinion of the American people.
Yeah, and in just the last 2 minutes I have with you, Auron, and I really appreciate your comments. How is the speaker's race, the vote, going to impact this in terms of long-term policy and hopefully getting Republicans to actually care about this and all of the border control and so forth? Because the vote has been set for tomorrow, Tuesday at noon. Jim Jordan right now is the front runner because I think he's the only one really that's running that has any sort of major support. But there are concerns that he can't reach that 217 threshold. There was a piece out over the weekend that if Jim Jordan falters, that Representative Mike Johnson, who's currently in the majority leadership, he has been a vice chair for quite a few years, is poised to potentially launch a bid for speaker. So I think either one of them would be absolutely phenomenal. But in terms of the more immediate sense, how do you see the speaker's race helping or possibly hindering some of what's going on at the border?
Well, it was very interesting because, of course, there was a lot of back and forth, especially in the kind of conservative commentariat when it came to the ousting of Kevin McCarthy. A lot of people got very angry about it, said this is a lack of party discipline. This is showing that Republicans are just petty, and it's vengeance by Gates and a bunch of other people. People got very personal, I think, about kind of that action. I look at it a little differently. However you feel about the individuals and the egos involved in that race, I think it's very clear that the Republican Party has consistently failed to deliver what it's promised to its voters. And that really is true of Kevin McCarthy as it has been of the wider Republican Party. I think the fact that he felt the heat, I think the fact that there was action taken to show the leadership that you do need to actually move towards the things you promise, you do actually have to take meaningful steps to meet your promises matters. I think that is a good thing. Whether or not you think the new speaker will be, I think Jim Jordan obviously is, I think, a better option there. There was, of course, the movement towards Steve Scalise earlier, and a lot of people say, "Oh, look, you just traded, one McCarthy for another, not a big change." I think obviously Jordan's, nomination would be far more important towards that. But either way, I don't think, unfortunately, that congressional Republicans are going to make a big leap forward until they are making wider promises and they're thinking more about how they're going to move public opinion back that direction. But in the short term, I think it is probably a good message for the Republican leadership to know that they still have to care about delivering on promises and what the base wants.
Absolutely, they do. And it's amazing to me how few Republicans really want to do the work of governing. They just want to do the work of media and commentating. And so, they should then not seek re-election and do what you and I do all day, which is that we get to comment, we have opinions, and we have a voice. And that's part of the role and responsibility, frankly, of having a show, having a political commentary and so forth. But, I'm not in a position, I'm not an elected official that's in a position to govern. And when they are wanting to be in these types of positions, that's the call first and foremost. And this is where I see a huge differentiation between a lot of the Republicans, particularly the rhinos, some of these that make these sort of vague promises and then don't actually keep them, and even the Republican majority right now that isn't using the majority effectively to whip those votes and actually stall any sort of Democrat legislation that may come through the Senate and push their own agenda, particularly with respect to the border, Ukraine funding, some of these other things. And that's where there is a huge contrast between some of these rhinos and someone like Governor DeSantis, who actually wants to govern. I mean, his campaign has not been by any stretch the best, in my opinion. It hasn't shown who he actually is. But if you actually look at what he's doing and how he gets things done, even with taking these 270 people from Israel and bringing them back into the United States. I mean, he's the only governor that's doing that currently and is actually getting things done. And maybe he's not the best on media. He doesn't do the most in terms of entertainment, but he actually wants to govern. And that's something that I really respect about him. I wish that the House majority would do the same thing. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Floridian, Jenna, and we might differ on this, but as someone who has benefited from the beneficence of King DeSantis and got to have a real life during COVID because of his action, I'm a big fan. But I've always said the same thing, and maybe it's just me being greedy as a Floridian. I think he should have stayed in Florida. I think that he does an amazing job here. I think that he was setting a blueprint for how regional power can be built away from Washington, D.C., how change can come from a state level, really bringing federalism back and showing that you don't have to go with D.C. And you saw that so many other governors followed his lead. And so my hope is that he would just continue that. Obviously, he kind of made some other decisions, and so that's kind of where we're at. But I really hope that the GOP takes that lesson. Like you said, governance doesn't just happen in presidential elections. It's not just acquiring a specific seat that in and of itself creates the difference. You have to be willing to govern. You have to be willing to lead, and you have to be willing to use what you have at your disposal. And if you're not doing that, if you're making excuses about, oh, this isn't a political reality, oh, we don't have the tools to do this, oh, we don't have the votes somewhere else, where it's your job to make a way. That's why you were put there. You should be using every tool available to make things happen for the voters who put you in place. And until you have a GOP who's doing that, they're going to keep seeing revolts from the base like they're seeing in things like the speaker race.
Yeah, really well said. And, if it ends up that Governor DeSantis doesn't win the primary and he stays governor as a Floridian and a new Floridian myself, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad outcome. And I hope, and I agree with you, I hope that that's true, that other Republican governors will take his blueprint and we can see state sovereignty rising up in a true principled federalism, because we should want to take the power out of Washington and have states as the laboratories of democracy. We see that clear contrast between Florida and California, for example. I can't wait for that debate between Governor DeSantis and Governor Newsom, because what can Governor Newsom possibly say to defend his state and the just horrible conditions that California is, and with everybody moving to Florida? I mean, the Babylon Bee headline was there's not enough U-Hauls that are actually going back to California. They're only going one way. And then that actually became a reality. It was one of their fulfilled prophecies. But anyway, I think it's really true that we need strong leadership in the White House and in Congress, but we really need strong governors as well. And that's what makes the state strong. That's what has made Florida strong. So on that, we can definitely agree. So Auron MacIntyre, thanks so much. And where can people find you on The Blaze?
Of course, yeah. All of my shows and columns are over at Blaze and BlazeTV. I'm on YouTube, Odyssey. You can find me on Twitter, all of those different places, or in MacIntyre Show.
Awesome. Thanks so much, and really appreciate you joining as always. And your comments are always really insightful. So I appreciate your show a lot. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds. but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you. My friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help you get the best night's sleep of your life. He didn't stop at the pillow. Mike also created the Giza Dream bed sheets. I have them. I love them. These sheets look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep, which is crucial for our overall health. Mike found the world's best cotton called Giza. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's latest deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets marketing prices down as low as $29.98, depending on the size. So go to mypillow.com and click on the radio podcast square and use promo code Jenna, Jenna. There, you'll find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and so much more. I have all of this. I love it. Everything from MyPillow and also mystore.com. You can use promo code Jenna. So go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna, and also mystore.com. And remember, use the promo code Jenna.